Los Angeles, California, the night of the Silver Hearts, Gala. The soft hum of string instruments drifted through the grand ballroom, mingling with laughter and the clinking of crystal glasses. Golden chandeliers sparkled overhead, scattering, light like diamonds. Celebrities, CEOs, fashion moguls, and millionaires mingled in tailored tuxedos and flowing designer gowns. It was a night for the elite, a celebration of status and spectacle. And somewhere between the champagne flutes and caviar towers stood a girl no one noticed. Raya Quinn, 24, clutched a silver tray tight against her chest, her eyes scanning for spills, empty glasses, and trouble. Her long brown hair was tied into a sleek ponytail, her black skirt pressed, and her sneakers tucked out of sight behind stiff black flats. No one here would know that just 3 hours ago, she was at County General Hospital, helping her mother, into a chemotherapy chair and promising her she'd be home by midnight. "This isn't forever," Raya had whispered to her, "just until we catch a break." But the truth? Breaks didn't come for girls like Raya. She walked the perimeter of the ballroom, offering champagne to people who didn't even make eye contact. She was part of the background, a moving piece of service, until someone made sure she knew it. "You. Yes, you. Waitress." Raya turned. Standing in front of her was Cleo Ray, the silver-screen darling-turned diva. Her lips curled in disgust. Raya offered a polite smile. "Yes, ma'am." Cleo took a glass of champagne and sniffed it like it. Offended her? "Is this chilled properly?" she asked with a dramatic pause. "Because it feels warm. And if I wanted warm champagne, I'd drink from a sidewalk puddle in Palm Springs." Raya's fingers tightened on the tray. "I'm so sorry. I can bring you a fresh one immediately." Cleo waved a manicured hand, already bored. "Just bring someone who knows what they're doing." With a snap of her fingers, she handed the glass back carelessly, nearly toppling the tray and drenching Raya's white shirt. A few guests chuckled quietly as they watched, entertained by her humiliation. Raya's cheeks flushed red, but she kept her smile. She had to. "Actually?" A soft, steady voice spoke up just behind Cleo. Raya turned to find a man in a plain black suit stepping forward from the shadows. He was tall, with tousled dark hair and calm gray eyes. He looked completely out of place. Not in what he wore, but in the way he wore it. Confident, but not arrogant. Simple, yet intentional. "I'll take that one," he said, nodding toward the rejected glass on Raya's tray. Cleo scoffed and spun around. "Excuse me, do you know who—" The man ignored her entirely. He took the glass from Raya's tray and raised it. "To intention," he said with a small, almost private smile. Raya stared. She didn't know why, but something about him made her feel seen. Her hands stopped trembling. Her heart slowed. "Thank you," she said quietly. He nodded once, then disappeared into the crowd. An hour passed. Raya kept moving, tray after tray with blistered feet and a fake smile. Her back ached. Her phone buzzed in her apron, probably another payment reminder from the hospital. She ignored it. She stepped out to the garden entrance for air and spotted something unusual. Near the side door, hidden from the grand chandeliers and paparazzi, an elderly janitor was struggling with a heavy mop bucket. He was clearly in pain, wincing as he tried to lift it onto a cart. Guests passed him without a glance. Raya didn't think. She set down her tray and rushed over. "Sir, here, let me help," she said, grabbing the other side of the bucket. "Careful. I've got it." The man blinked in surprise. "Thank you, sweetheart. Nobody sees me at these things." "I see you," she said, smiling. "And you shouldn't be lifting this alone." She walked with him, cracking a small joke about how even the mop looked tired. The man laughed, a warm, genuine sound. As they rounded the corner, he said softly, "You've got a good heart, young lady." Don't lose that in a world like this. She nodded, not realizing someone behind the column had just recorded the entire thing. Not just anyone. Jet Maddox. Back. Inside, the event wound down. Guests drifted out into their limos. The orchestra packed up. Raya stood near the back doors, aching in every joint, her tray empty, her energy gone. She slipped her apron off, collected her tips, meager compared to what these people spent on one drink, and clocked out. She didn't notice the man watching her from the upper balcony. Jet Maddox sipped his final glass of wine, eyes following. The girl in the plain white shirt and sensible shoes. He had seen hundreds of women tonight, draped in diamonds, laughing in circles of power. But only one had paused to help someone the world ignored. And that meant everything. Raya trudged down, Sunset Boulevard in the cool night air, carrying her sneakers in one hand and her tips in the other. Her phone buzzed again. She checked. 11th 731-38 due. Final notice, County General Hospital. Patient. Mrs. Callahan Quinn. She blinked away tears. Just keep going, she whispered. One more shift. One more step. She didn't know that a viral storm was about to erupt overnight. And her life was seconds away from never being the same again. Raya Quinn's alarm buzzed beside her stained second-hand mattress. She groaned, rolled over, and silenced it with a clumsy hand. Her bones ached like she'd been hit by a truck. But there was no time for pain, only survival. Another shift at the diner in 3 hours and bills that wouldn't stop breathing. Down her neck. She stretched, shuffled to the kitchenette, and made herself a sad excuse for coffee, instant, bitter, and barely hot. She hadn't even sipped it when her phone lit up. Hundreds of notifications. What the hell? She muttered. Her thumb scrolled through a flood of messages. OMG, girl. You're on TikTok. This you? You're trending. On Twitter. Raya Quinn, Fike, America's sweetheart. She clicked the link. There she was, helping the janitor at the gala. The video was shot from an angle she hadn't noticed, her voice clear, her smile soft. The caption read, while the rich mingled. This waitress showed what true class looks like. Beneath it, comments exploded. Hire this girl for the White House. This made me cry. There's still hope in the world. She's a better person than most people at that gala combined. And the views? 3 million. And counting. Raya's heart thundered. The bell over the door jingled as Raya entered. Heads turned. Customers whispered. Even her manager, Brenda, stared at her like she'd grown wings. You're the gala girl, Brenda gasped, holding a spatula like a mic. The kind waitress. We saw the video. Raya flushed. I didn't know anyone was filming. Girl, you're famous, a cook shouted from the back. Her phone buzzed. Again, another notification, then 10 more. Emails from reporters, interview requests. Her Instagram, which had maybe 300 followers yesterday, was now at 28.4K and rising like a rocket. She sat on a milk crate behind the kitchen trying to process it all, but before she could catch her breath, her phone rang. Hello? She answered, hesitantly. Miss Quinn? Came a deep, calm voice. My name is Amelia Byrne. I'm the assistant to Mr. Jet Maddox. Raya blinked. I'm sorry. Who? There was a pause, as if the woman on the other end expected her to know. Mr. Maddox owns Maddox Industries, the Maddox Foundation. He was also the host of the Silver Hearts Gala. Raya's blood froze. Wait, the gala? Yes. Mr. Maddox saw the video of your kind gesture, and he saw it in person as well. He'd like to meet with you privately, if you're open to it. Raya stared at her cracked coffee cup. I'm just a waitress, the voice softened. Miss Quinn, he's very serious. He's arranged a car to pick you up in 1 hour. He's not offering publicity. He's offering a conversation. The car stopped at a massive iron gate, which opened silently onto a private drive lined with blooming white roses. The estate. Beyond was palatial, but not in a gaudy way. More like timeless elegance wrapped in glass and wood. Raya stepped out, heart pounding. A tall woman with sleek hair greeted her. "Miss Quinn? I'm Amelia. Mr. Maddox is waiting inside." Raya followed her into a sunlit atrium, where floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a garden and reflecting pool. It was so peaceful she could hear her own breath. And then he appeared. Wearing a charcoal gray sweater, hands in his pockets, Jet Maddox stood by the glass like he belonged to another world. But when he turned to face her, he smiled with quiet warmth. "Raya," he said, like they were already familiar. She nodded, stunned. Hi. Hi. I'm glad you came." They sat across from each other at a small table beside a Japanese maple tree. No reporters, no cameras. Just two people and a conversation that would alter her entire existence. "I was there last night," Jet said, voice low. "Not as a billionaire, not as a host, just as someone watching. And I saw something everyone else missed." He paused. "You," Raya swallowed. "I was just helping." "No," he said gently. "You were doing what most people forgot how to do. You didn't care about who was watching. You didn't know you were being seen. That makes it real." He slid an envelope across the table. She blinked. "What's this?" "A job offer," he said. "Not a PR stunt, not a favor, an opportunity. I want you to join the Maddox Foundation. Help lead our new initiative for dignity work. Programs for people in invisible jobs, janitors, waitresses, care workers." Raya's jaw dropped. "I don't have a degree. I'm not qualified." "You're more qualified than anyone I've interviewed," he said. "You lived it. You get it." Tears welled in her eyes. "You're offering me..." "What? A desk job?" "I'm offering you a purpose," Jet replied, "and a seat at the table you've always deserved." Raya returned to her tiny apartment, still numb. She sat on the edge of her bed, envelope in hand. Inside, a formal letter. A salary more than she'd ever dreamed of, a health plan, a relocation option, a real future, and one more thing. A handwritten note on thick stationery. From Jet himself. "The world needs more people like you, not louder. Just more visible. Let's change that, together," she cried. Not because she was overwhelmed, but because someone finally saw her and believed she was more than what life had reduced her to. The media storm erupted into full blaze. Headlines popped up everywhere. The waitress who won America's heart. Billionaire Jet Maddox hires viral heroine for groundbreaking. Roll. From waiting tables to changing lives, Raya Quinn's next chapter. Raya, suddenly famous, was invited onto morning shows, podcasts, and late-night interviews. But through it all, she stayed grounded, still wearing her thrifted boots, still helping her mother get to treatments. People didn't just admire her, they loved her. And Jet? He stayed quietly in the background, letting Raya shine. When a reporter asked him why he chose her, he simply said, "Because she represents the kind of humanity money can't buy." Raya entered the sleek Maddox Foundation building in downtown LA, feeling out of place in her modest clothes. But she held her head high. Inside, every wall was lined with photos of nurses, garbage collectors, farmers, school janitors, and now, on one wall near the front, Raya Quinn, Director of Dignity Work Initiative. "It takes courage to be kind when no one's looking." As she stepped into her new office, sunlight pouring through tall windows, Amelia handed her a tablet and, "A fresh coffee. Mr. Maddox wants to see you later today," she said. Raya smiled. "Tell him I'm ready." That evening, Raya stepped onto the rooftop garden where Jet stood overlooking the skyline. He turned when she approached, a soft smile on his face. "You made it," he said. "Because of you," she replied. He shook his head. "No, because you were already enough. I just gave you the platform to prove it." They stood side by side, watching the sun sink below the buildings. No words, no promises, just something real and growing. It had been 93 days since Raya Quinn stepped into the world of billionaires, boardrooms, and headlines. But she never forgot where she came from. Every day she passed a mirror before walking into her office at the Maddox Foundation. Not to check her hair or her makeup, but to remind herself, you were a waitress in hand-me-down shoes. And that's still enough. Under Raya's leadership, the Dignity Work Initiative exploded into a national movement. She created programs for overlooked workers, janitors, caregivers, dishwashers, delivery drivers, giving them access to benefits, financial support, and mental health care. And the people? They rallied behind her like a modern-day Cinderella of the people. But not everything was perfect. Despite the fame, Raya lived alone. She was focused, too focused maybe. She buried herself in work, in purpose. Yet every time Jet Maddox entered a room, her world paused. And still, he never made a move, just kind glances, quiet support, and a distance she didn't understand until everything changed. That evening, Raya stood alone on the foundation's rooftop garden, a place that had become her sanctuary. The LA sky burned orange and pink behind her. She heard footsteps. She didn't turn. She knew who it was. "Beautiful evening," Jet said softly. "Yeah. Feels like something's coming," she replied, eyes fixed on the horizon. He stepped beside her. For a moment, they stood in silence. Then he spoke. "I've watched you become everything this city didn't know it needed. They love you, Raya. He stopped himself. She finally turned to him. "Then why do you always pull away?" His jaw tightened. "Because people like me ruin people like you." She blinked. "That's not true." He looked into her eyes with quiet torment. "I've seen what the spotlight does. I didn't want it to change you." Raya stepped closer. "You think I'm that fragile?" "No. I think you're that precious." For a moment, the air between them trembled. Then, just as she thought he'd finally closed the distance, he stepped back. "Tomorrow," he said, "I want to show you something. No cameras, no headlines. Just you and me." Raya nodded, heart racing. "Okay." At dawn, Jet picked her up in a vintage silver Mustang. No suit, no assistant, just jeans, sunglasses, and an anxious smile. They drove in silence for almost 2 hours, through city streets, then past open fields. Finally, they pulled up to a weathered building with boarded-up windows. A faded sign read, "Greenwood Home for Working Mothers." Raya's breath caught. "This place," she whispered. "I stayed here with my mom once, years ago." "I know," Jet said softly. "It's been abandoned since 2017, but I bought it last month." Her eyes shot to his. "Why?" "Because you once said something," he said, "that when your mom was at her lowest, this place gave her 2 warm meals and a bed. You said it saved you both." She nodded slowly. "I want you to reopen it," Jet said. "Under your vision, not as a charity." He handed her a folder. "As a legacy." Inside, plans, funding, approval. She couldn't speak. Her hands shook. This is a second chance for every girl like me." "No," Jet said. "This is your first chapter." Media trucks lined the street. But this time, the cameras weren't focused on a celebrity scandal or a red carpet. Fashion hit. They were here for a home. Raya stood at a podium, microphone trembling in her hands, eyes misty. I was once that girl sitting on a thin mattress with no heat, no hope, and no future, she said. But someone gave me a chance. Not because I was extraordinary, but because kindness should be normal. Behind her, the building had been transformed. Solar panels, gardens, classrooms, cribs, a haven, a sanctuary, and in the back, leaning against a column with his arms crossed, was Jet Maddox. He wasn't at the podium. He wasn't in front. But his eyes never left her. Late one evening, Raya returned to her apartment to find an envelope on her table. No stamp, just her name, handwritten in blue ink. She opened it. Dear Raya, there's one more chapter. I never had the courage to write, until now. When I first saw you at that gala, you reminded me of everything I lost. Before the money, before the mergers, I was just a boy with a dream and a mom who worked double shifts cleaning other people's houses. You reminded me of her fire, her heart, her refusal to break. But then you became something more. You became the light I didn't know I needed. I've built companies, funded revolutions, donated millions. But the most valuable thing I ever invested in was you. If you feel the same, meet me at the rooftop at midnight. Raya's heels echoed on the rooftop tile. The city shimmered below like a sea of stars. And there he was. Jet turned when he heard her. No tie, no bravado, just the man. I wasn't sure you'd come, he said, voice tight with nerves. She walked up to him and held out the letter. You say this is an investment, she said. So what do I get in return? He swallowed. Everything. Or nothing. If you want out, I'll never ask again. She looked into his eyes, then reached into her pocket, pulled out her own note. Love doesn't need headlines, just courage. Then she reached up and kissed him, not a dramatic movie star kiss, but one full of every moment they'd shared, every unspoken word, every delayed feeling. And for once, the world below paused. The waitress, the billionaire, no longer from two different worlds. Now, just two people who saw each other clearly. The Maddox Quinn Center for Working Families was now the national standard. With 5 branches across the country and a 6th being built in Atlanta, it offered childcare, job placement, mental health support, and emergency housing. And its director? Still Raya Quinn. Only now. Raya Maddox Quinn. She kept her name. Jet insisted on it. Said it mattered more to the people than his. They lived in a modest, craftsman-style home outside L.A., far from the buzz of the city. She still visited her old diner. Still hugged the janitors at every event, but now she did it with a mic in one hand and a nation watching, not because she chased fame, but because her kindness caught fire. And the man who believed in her, he stood right beside her, not in front, not above, but with her, always.